Welcome to the Playful Spirituality podcast, a place to reconnect to spirit, to reclaim your unbridled wildness, and to bring you home to you. I'm Cara, and I'm honored to be on this adventure with you. This is a place to discover your magic and your superpowers. And yes, you definitely have them. It's designed to tap you into the unconditional love and support flowing to you, and to help you access that wild, unbridled joy that we so often lose touch with. You can expect all sorts of resources, from spiritual and practical tools and teachings to guided meditations and energy healing. We'll have some special guests and even some live readings. This show is for all of us who are humaning, to help you navigate this ride of life. If you are open to a little more support, more ease, a broader connection to the universe and to yourself, then stay tuned and find out what might be possible with an infusion of playful spirituality.
All right, back into 3D reality. Hi, my friends, and welcome to the Playful Spirituality podcast. I have brought in a very, very, very special guest today. It's actually the second time I brought her in for a podcast interview. The first time we did not succeed in the 3D reality of speakers working. So we're coming back again, take two, which is delightful because she's someone I love and adore, and I'm happy to spend as much time with as I can. Please meet Amy. Amy is one of the most, it seems silly to just say powerful healers, but she is one of the people I reach to when I'm like, I need someone else to bring healing in. I need someone else to bring this in. I want to learn something. I want to receive. I want to sit in study. Amy is the one that I reach for and have known for many, many years now and has seen me through a lot in life. And she's also the author of this amazing book, which is not our topic for today, but I just want to plug it. An Instructor's Guide to Educating with Kindness and Leading with Love. It's an incredible workbook. So if you are an educator or know an educator or are a parent or facilitator, go get this book. Okay, Amy, welcome. Will you just tell everybody, actually, what I really want people to know is, I feel like there should be a little bit of foreplay before we jump into the whole story. So will you tell us something about how you're feeling today in this moment or this week? We're just upon a big eclipse and full moon last night. So what are you going through, experiencing right now today?
Yeah. Well, Cara, thank you for having me for the second time. It's really nice to spend some time with you. Um, it's it's been an interesting couple of days for me. I, lots of lots of just sort of like uh, emotions just bubbling to the surface, sort of like when you're cooking water for pasta and right before you get like a rolling boil when you get like those bubbles coming. Um, and I've been the past week or so, I've been kind of just doing this experiment where I'm just kind of like following my smiles around. So noticing what's making me smile and kind of observing and being more conscious around smiling. So when like emotions that aren't going to create a smile show up, which they have been. Kind of looking at it through the lens of like, well, how can I observe this and be um, open to the possibility that it can lead me somewhere that results in like the physical experience of smiling. So it's been an interesting couple of days. Doing that little practice for myself.
I love that, following your smiles around.
Yeah.
Oh, because that's being led from such a body and authentic place. Because if
Yeah.
we were trying to just follow the things that make me happy or follow the things that, well, that might not be what it is in this moment, or it might be what just my head thinks it should be, or what made me happy
Hmm.
before, or not even realizing that this simple thing might be it. But if you're actually
Yeah.
following the spontaneous smile when it erupts, That's genius.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it's funny because I feel like often when especially when we're kind of like seeking clarity around like where we're going and what we're doing and who we're becoming, um, it's really easy to sort of like disconnect from the body felt sense of what feels um, productive in our animal self. And a smile is so easy to like identify as something productive or good feeling. Um, and often doesn't necessarily correlate to like anything logical. Like weird things make us smile that aren't necessarily, happy or funny or, so um, it's been interesting to kind of observe what's been making me smile and then notice like, oh, I can kind of redirect my body to focus more on this sensation and to identify like, oh, when I feel this way because I'm smiling, that's something that's probably um, going to result in something a little more positive or constructive or healing or nurturing or gentle or compassionate for my what I have going on and the choices I'm making. So yeah, it's kind of a fun thing I stumbled upon this past week um, with
I'm
regards
so
to like
glad.
seeking purpose. So
Yes. Oh, okay. So let's veer off already off of where I thought we were going to go. And let's detour in, or let's navigate our way in. Will you talk a little bit about this idea of finding purpose and or finding our way as we fumble through
Mm.
life? Because um, you are, I think, someone who's really good at leaning in and following when life is like, and now way over here, and now way over here, and now do this, and then do the hokey pokey, um, and especially for people who are really multi-passionate, and I know you
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
um, sometimes we can have self-judgment like that we think we should be linear and we think we should have a 5-year plan and we think we should, um, but this doesn't really work that way all the time.
Yeah. I think most of the time it doesn't work that way. Like it's great when it does. It feels really like rewarding when the linear plan actually works out the way we ideate it to be. Um, but I think most of the time, this the idea of understanding purpose is often, at least in the West, um, we think of it a lot as being directly tied into like what we do or our productivity, like what we make. And then that has sort of an inherent tie into our values. So our value is often misunderstood to be like I'm valuable or I have worth because of what I do, and my purpose is connected to this productivity factor. If I'm being productive, if I'm creating, if I'm then that's my purpose. Um, and I think we're kind of taught that from an early age, in school, that if we pass the test, if we get good grades, then we have a higher value or a higher ranking in the institution of learning. Um, and there's like value and there's that's important and serves a purpose, but when it comes to what I think you're talking about, which is like individual purpose, what for me comes to mind and what I've been sitting with a lot lately is one's purpose having to be less about what like career or productivity and more about like the intersection of um, one's passion, one's desire to be of service, and also like where we as a soul, or a self with like a capital S, experience deep fulfillment. And that often, for me anyway, I'm discovering more and more has very little to do with um, making money or being famous or being productive or like being the best at fill in the blank. It has a lot more to do with uh, you know, if I fast forward through, you know, my life to the last day that I'm alive and I'm looking back, what is it that's going to be important to me? And I really do feel that for me, it has a lot more to do with um, how I was able to experience joy and embody that in some way so that I don't feel guilty or contracted by experiencing joy. And also, how was I able to be of service and leave the world like a better place than I found it? Um, which is totally like where the work in progress comes in, right? Like those two ideas, I think are pretty loaded for most people. Like I know I still am like, wow, it's okay for me to feel happiness. Great. What, even today, you know, like what does that feel like? Am I allowed to? Is it okay? Is it safe? You know, how much happiness is too much happiness? And then the idea of being of service, it, you know, is just a totally loaded thing, I think, especially for anybody who's um, in the healing arts or in a teaching or facilitating profession. You know, there's a lot of baggage that comes with that. Like if you know, you know, you know. um, and and so I think there's, in order to get to a place where you can feel like a healthy understanding of what your purpose is, maybe it has to do with inviting in, like, well, where is that sense of fulfillment meeting my passion, my joy, and my desire to be of service? Like, I'm a player, I'm a protagonist in that purpose identification and then embodiment. I'm not just like watching, like, oh, there's my purpose over there. Like, wonder what it's gonna do next, you know, like we're actively creating it all the time. It's not something, I don't think it's something that you go out and like find. I wish it were, it'd be so much easier.
If we just got to go slay the dragon and you just knew, like, once you got to the end of this quest, then, like, ta-da,
Right.
you get the
Then
golden thingy bob, and then, like, there it is.
yeah, there it is. That's my purpose. I did it.
But I really like this way of thinking about purpose that you're talking about, because when it is something outside of us, um, especially for those of us who are born givers and,
Hmm.
in these kind of fields, and the empaths and the people pleasers, and those of us with a big caring heart, we are the ones who will be like, well, screw my needs, because
Hmm.
I am so keenly aware of the needs of the world and the people here and around me, and my heart
Yes.
wants to be of service. And then we just take that to this crazed extreme of, like, at the expense of my own self. Let me
Yeah.
break me, because the amount of service is this big, and even if I only have this much to give, I gotta give this much. And if
Right.
we thought about purpose as something that, like you were saying, like weaves into us, as in purpose for me and the world.
Yeah.
Like, what if
Yeah.
there was a tie-in in there? This purpose was designed to be for me and of service in some way.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's a little bit healthier balance in there.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and it is, I mean, I think about the way I sort of approached purpose in the past, and I just sort of, when you look back at yourself, you're like, wow, that was pretty funny. The way I thought I knew what I knew then, but now I see it through a totally different lens. Um, I think uh, there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do. If we aren't like born into a specific purpose that's perfectly in alignment and we know exactly what we're supposed to be from the second we're born, but it is very much a, like, I'm walking through this life in this body, and part of this is I need to um, identify like how to experience what it is I'm doing here. Like, I don't know how to do this. Um, and nobody really knows how to do it. Like, we're all sort of, trying to figure it out. So it's funny to me that we think that like this purpose is something outside of us that we need to find, because it's really, it is us. We're already doing it. And I think when we realize that we have all of these blinders up from our experience or our our families, our culture, our backgrounds, all these different things that influence us for better or worse, um, it makes it uh, it makes purpose like over there, which is something you have to achieve, which I think is kind of the opposite of what purpose actually is. Like purpose is something you actually already are. Um, and when we can kind of be present with identifying the like the you that you are, as opposed to the you that everyone wants you to be, or the you that you feel you should be because of all these different factors, then purpose becomes a little bit less about achievement, um, and commodity, and more about things that aren't linear at all, like things that are not necessarily even time related. Um, like purpose could just be smiling, you know. It could be something very simple. Uh, yeah.
Oh, that's okay. I just want for everybody listening, I want this to sink in. Grab a journal. Amy said some really important things here, and I want you to I want you to chew it up and digest it and make it yours. So, purpose is you, and you're already doing it. So, in your journal, I want you to write that down and then write, how would I see all of the circumstances in my life differently if I really fully understood and believed and knew that I was already doing my purpose? Like if I was out of that mode of like, I'm not enough because I'm striving, because I'm trying to get the thing, and I actually could be in the like, nope, purpose is right here, exactly what I'm doing. Check, pat myself on the back. Time to like whatever celebration I thought I would give myself when I achieved that purpose. Time to do it right now because nailed it. You're here. You got it. Take yourself out for a whatever. This is a thing. You did it. And how silly for us to think that purpose is like uh, stationary or stagnant or one thing. Like you're gonna reach and achieve, and that it's not going to be a completely moving thing all the time because it's us and we're evolving all the time. So,
Mm.
okay, that was delightful. Swerve. I'm so glad that came out. Um, can you actually? I want to say something else about that. I for all the talk that I do about purpose, have noticed a few times in my life where um, most of the time, I think about myself as someone who really, I like who I am. I
Mhm.
know and I like who I am. It's part of, maybe it's the Leo in me. I don't know. It's plenty of things to be insecure about. But like who I am as a person, I'm like, yeah, I like me. My favorite person
Mhm.
to spend time with. There have been moments of like fully losing that for sure. But when there have been a couple of times when my reality shifted drastically and I was so surprised that the sense of self that I had felt like lost or broken. So when
Mhm.
I left my day job, I'd been doing all of my work in the world for a long, long time, and I was doing it at the same time that I was running a helicopter school on the Big Island, and it was a really cool job. And I juggled those two things. I did it for 13 years, 12 years,
Mhm.
something like that. And when I left that, and I left it for a beautiful reason. I left it to go be with the man of my dreams and to do my work full time. Like it was the reason that I planned on, like, someday when I leave this job, it'll be for this. And
Right.
still, I had such an incredible loss of identity that hit
Mhm.
me. And I've had that happen throughout. Different things will change in life as I went from being like, uh, and I didn't know that part of my sense of self was, I would never have guessed that. If you'd said, gee, Cara, maybe you should prepare yourself, I would have been like, no way. I don't identify as that. What are you talking about? Like, I know who I am. It's totally separate from what I do and how I do it. No, not at all. Brought me to my knees I couldn't believe
Mhm.
what a shift I thought it was. And then the same thing, I
Mm.
was maybe a little more prepared for it, but it hit me harder than I thought when I became a mom, and like all of sense of self gets completely stripped away. And especially at the beginning, you are nothing but mom.
Mhm.
That's it.
Mhm.
You are literally just a cow, and your whole being is to keep this little squishy thing alive, and there is no sense of self left. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think it's fascinating that as that purpose, like you said, it's us, shifted in my life. And I knew, right? Like I could see on the outside, and those were for good reasons.
Sure.
But boy, was it hard for that, like um ego, I guess. But I don't want to, we make ego sound like it's a terrible thing, and I don't like to use it because of the negative connotation. But like that sense of self, of like me as a person, I didn't know was gonna rock the foundation when it shifted.
Yeah. 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 It's it's I mean, I think it's happening all the time, and I think I definitely relate to a lot of what you said. I felt very similar actually when I was pregnant, and then when I became a mom as well. Um, and I think there are these moments in everybody has them. Like we're all going through these moments of like complete identity breakdown. Um, and um, and I think, it's like a refining process, like we think about it consciously, and like the way our cognitive brain works, like we think about it as like, oh no, who am I if I'm not working at the helicopter school, or if I'm not doing this? Um, it feels like you're in free fall almost. And um, I I think it's sort of like like the baggage you need to let go of, or like the cliff face that you're hanging on, that like you need to release. And I'm sure we've talked about this like over the years, like where you're like, I'm hanging off of a cliff, and then you like release and the ground is right underneath you, and it's actually like not that far of a jump. You're actually like exactly where you're supposed to be. But sometimes there's this like unbounded space between like one self-identification and the next.
Yeah.
And I think that is like what I've noticed is that's like the scariest for most people, myself included, where you're like, I'm not where I'm going, and I'm not where I was, and I'm in the in between space. Um, and we don't really make room for the in-between space to be like a space of playfulness. We sort of, I think of it as like this really stressful purgatory, like cultures, like religions think of it as like the in-between space is bad, like nothing happens in the in-between space. Um, but it's really like with every death or end or transition, there is that in between space before something new begins. And it might be really fast, where it's like, you release from the cliff face and then you step down right into the new role of self identification, and there you are, and you're on your way. And then sometimes it takes a really long ass time to like, you know, for you to realize that you're standing in this new self-identifying way of being. Um, and in that in-between space where it feels like nothing is happening, it's almost like you're ripe for exploration and play. You're ripe to actually like do that playful uh like experimentation of self. Like what, okay, like I've let go of this, and I that's not me anymore, and it kind of makes me feel sad, and maybe I have some grief that is processing, or maybe I'm pissed off about it, or maybe I'm really excited about what's coming but I have no idea what it is. um it's like this beautiful place to kind of sink into stillness um and like appreciation for that stillness. There's so few times that we get to be still in our lives, and do nothing. And also actually be nothing, like when you're in that in between space, it's like this rare opportunity to just not be anything other than like raw creation potential, like this potential energy. And it's really scary. It's terrifying. But it's also a part of being alive, is to recognize that we are made up of this raw creation energy. And sometimes it's literally just buffering. It's just like the rainbow buffer thing is spinning in our circuitry, and there's nothing happening, and we're not where we need to be yet, and we're just buffering. And so we can be still and kind of just play in that and remember, like, do all the processing and the healing and the recovery and all the other like deep work that we need to do. But sometimes that's not what's needed in that space, and what's needed is just to sort of be present with this open possibility and recognize that that too is also a value in understanding one's purpose, that nothing's wasted, like energy isn't wasted you know um so yeah.
Oh, golden. And I'm so glad to hear you say this because I can see all of these in betweens that I'm experiencing right now.
Right,
Like some
yeah.
are like long and slow that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Our house has been under construction for what feels like forever.
Forever.
And at times it's chaos and I want to like scratch my like I'm itchy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I love this like pure creation energy idea of it. Um, and as I'm emerging from postpartum
Mm-hmm.
so slowly, like little, like poking my head through little tiny bits at a time, I'm in that like unknown because
Yeah.
who am I becoming right now?
Yeah.
And is it like it looks a little familiar, like who Cara used to be, but it's definitely going to be different. So to be in that like pure potential creation is such a great way to think about it. And I had this image of like the monkeys, like when you were swinging tree to tree as a monkey,
Mm-hmm.
there's times when like you're doing such a big swing that you let go of this branch and like go for the
Right.
next one, but like that's the moment you get to fly.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's unknown, but
Yeah.
that's the moment you're flying.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really like re taking back this, like rebranding, renaming this, like
Mm-hmm.
being in the unknown instead of being in like the messy fear of it. What if we were in the like freedom of it, in the
Yeah.
potential of it, in the like possibility, in the flying feeling?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think probably the easiest way to do it is to just be curious, you
Mm,
know, because it's so almost like reflex, I think, in many people to just go into like an emotional state of contraction or like a narrative around why it's not great or stressful or not safe or a bad idea. Um, but uh, but I'm constantly reminded, and maybe it's because I have, a almost 7-year old, just like how easy things are when you stay curious
mm,
about what's in front of you, what's happening in front of you. And you can see at that age in particular is like when, your brain development sort of shifts out of being in this kind of dream state into the more like focused, alert, quote unquote, real world, whatever that means, way of thinking, where the brain is kind of in a different way of programming information. And watching my son go like oscillating between being really curious and then kind of adopting these behaviors that you see in adults, of like, well, this is what we need to be doing, and this is what it means to be good at blah blah blah, and that's exactly what you're supposed to do at that age, like you're supposed to sort of have that transition, as your brain develops. But when it comes to being in this like unbounded space, which is pretty much like a lot of like you said, I love that you said like, oh, I'm thinking about all these different places that I'm in right now. Like we have lots of like buffering zones in our lives. It's not
mm,
like universally everything is an in-between space. Like some things might be very clear and other areas not so much. Um and being able to just be curious about what's happening without judgment, without like passing judgment on what's happening and limiting it by telling a story about it, sort of taking data and information about what's going on, I think is really helpful in being able to make sense of like that creation energy, because that's when we notice uh, where that fulfillment comes in. Because if we have no idea where we're going, we're just sort of floating in this energy of possibility, eventually we have to start identifying direction. And the only way to do that is to sort of pay attention to what that creative energy is showing us. And if we're too busy being stressed out, we'll miss it.
This is gold. This is gold. I'm so happy this winds up being what we're talking about today.
Me
Okay, and I
too.
feel like this is perfect because now I want you to tell people your story, and now I think it's going to land in a totally different way. And I can never hear enough of how you got into energy work and healing, and
Mhm.
your story of healing um, inspires me every time I hear it. So I'm just going to
Oh,
sit back with my tea and enjoy.
all right. I don't know how far back you want me to go. Where should I start? Um,
Wherever you feel,
Wherever.
yeah, whatever feels fun to tell today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I've always been somebody who feels things really, really deeply. Um, and I think like many highly intuitive and sensitive individuals, um, that isn't something that you grow up having it. It's rare, I should say, to grow up having that be celebrated, or understood. And so, um, by the time I was, I don't know, like 9, um, there were all sorts of like protocol in place so that like the people around me could handle me. um, as opposed to um, being given tools so that I could handle me, and understand what it was that I was experiencing and have language to communicate about it. I didn't really get the language for it until much later, but communication was always very important to me. I had a speech impediment as a little girl, um, which when you are born in Connecticut and you have a Boston accent, they consider that a speech impediment. So I went to speech therapy in first grade and kind of became really fixated early on with communication, because I felt like I was receiving so much extrasensory information that apparently most people around me they weren't receiving. So I got like really, really into different forms of communication, like linguistic communication, body communication, just how we as animals communicate, um, out loud and otherwise. And the way that the acceptable way that that manifested was I studied languages. So in my family, that was the acceptable way to experience, you know, understanding the world around, and languages, the performing arts, um, improvisational theater was sort of the thing that brought me through high school and into adulthood. Um, and for me, it's always just been like an access point for channeling and catharsis and healing of myself. So fast forward like into my 20s, mid 20s, maybe. Um, and I'm living in Queens with my boyfriend, who later became my husband. And um, we're, just like doing life. I'm teaching yoga and doing body work and teaching in schools and tutoring and, just sort of doing the gig life that you do when you're like a teaching artist in New York City and a healer, but you don't know you're a healer yet. And you're just somatizing everything around you and wondering why you're sick all the time. And I spontaneously lost my hearing. I went deaf. And like I could hear, but it was as if I was like 10 feet underwater. And so everything was super far away and super muffled. And this was really not great because uh, you can't teach people if you like effectively if you can't hear them. You can't communicate. If you can't hear. Um, and so I went to every single allopathic specialist. There's nothing physically wrong with my ears. My ears were fine. There's nothing wrong with them. So once I had exhausted all of that, looking at my ears, looking at my throat, my lungs, like my everything, I just, went off the deep end of like what Western medicine had to offer, and then proceeded to like start like bushwhacking my way through Eastern medicine. And um, nothing and nobody knew what was wrong with my ears. My ears just stayed underwater. Um, and so summer came, thankfully, and so I took the summer off of like teaching and kind of started feeling like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to just figure this out. And as usual, it's up to me to figure it out. And I think that's maybe a very common belief system for healers to sort of feel like you're kind of on your own, um, which I think is like the biggest fallacy there is as a healer, that we're alone in our experience. But I couldn't hear anything, so I like went to Barnes and Noble when Barnes and Noble was still like a bookstore location, and uh, was like perusing the self-help section, and I stumbled across um, a book on the healing modality, the Theta healing technique by Vienna Steibel. And I had seen her speak and thought it was really cool what she was talking about. And a friend of mine a few months prior had like just taken a certification class and given me a session. It was really cool and that was amazing, and sort of just like bookmarked it in my brain for like that was fun, maybe later. And her book was there and I bought it because figured, well, I can't hear, I might as well read some stuff and see if that does anything. And at this point I was doing like lots of cleanses, like I was doing everything. It was bananas and nothing was really working, but I was like getting like my body was getting stronger. I just still couldn't hear. So I start reading the book and I read it cover to cover, and then I go back and I read it again more slowly. Um, and the book has like a step by step how to do the technique written into it. So I just started practicing the technique, um, and consciously doing this meditation practice. And as I was doing it, I'm communicating, and in my mind, I'm hearing, which was even crazier. Like I can hear in my mind, but I can't physically hear. So in my mind, I'm hearing what I'm perceiving to be this like creative energy, this universal life force energy, this prana, this chi, creation, God, whatever. Um, and I'm like in the backyard of uh, the little like duplex that I'm living in Astoria, Queens, like sitting in the backyard with my eyes closed, talking to myself and to creation, thinking I'm probably losing my mind. Like I'm like, okay, well, if this is how I'm gonna lose my mind, at least I feel good about it. And I start like doing the practices, and I'm noticing that I'm like feeling really optimistic and like not feeling anxious or depressed. Like things in my life start shifting. And and when I say shifting, it's like people are noticing that I'm shifting. They're like, "Wow, Amy, you seem like you're really happy." And I'm just like, "What?" Because I can't hear anything. Um, and so I'm getting validation back that like something's happening and I'm feeling these profound shifts in my body, but I still can't hear. And um I am like it's been several months now and I can't hear. And it was on the holiday, the Hindu holiday called Guru Purnima, where you celebrate your teachers. And I was feeling like really sad and sorry for myself that day because I'm like, I don't have any teachers. Like if I had a teacher, then maybe I wouldn't be deaf. I'm just like playing like, oh, poor me. Um, just feeling very, very sad about it. And I just ask like creation to help me. And I'm like, what do I need to do to hear? Like, I've done everything I could think of. What do I need to do? And I just hear in my mind, you need to write a letter to your mother. And that kind of was like, it was very startling and very unexpected, um, and very, very clear, like, write a letter to your mother. So, not what I was expecting as an answer, but that was the answer I got. And at the time, my parents were going through, they were having some marital issues and had been months before sort of calling me on the phone and talking with me about it. Which in retrospect now I'm like, oh, maybe like my sudden deafness was sort of a boundary that I set up because I didn't want to hear about my parents' marital issues. Um, but uh but at the time I'm just sort of like, whoa, I need to write a letter to my mom. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, probably. So I like sit down to write this letter and it's like I have the biggest case of emotional writer's block constipation ever. And I just can't write this letter. I'm just like stuck. And so for the next month I can't write this letter and I'm trying every single day to write this letter and nothing is coming out. And I'm so frustrated and the frustration is building and I go and I actually visit my parents because I'm thinking maybe if I visit them, then I'll be able to like write this letter to my mom and then I'll be able to hear. And what happened at the time was my aunt, my mom's sister, who's this formidable tiny woman who's like maybe 5 feet tall, and she's a very, very intense tiny litigator for the US government at the time. And she's terrifying. And she's like yelling at me because I can't hear. Like, so she's shouting at me so that I can hear what she's saying. Like, Amy, you need to not let like what's going on in your family's life like get in the way of you being successful and you finding your purpose. Like, you need to be writing letters to people who inspire you. And this is like out of like literally out of nowhere. She's telling me this. Like, I didn't tell her that I'm like talking to what I think is God. Maybe I've lost my mind and that God told me to write a letter to my mom. Like, this just came out of nowhere. And so I'm kind of just, like my jaw drops to the ground and I'm like, okay, that's interesting and creepy and unnerving. But she's not wrong. Like, there's some validation. I need to write a letter to my mom and I can't write it. Finally, I go home and I'm back in Queens in my house and I'm still haven't written this letter. And I just am like pissed off. And in this like frustrated, like stomp your feet, temper tantrum moment with myself, I say in my mind to creation, I'm just like, who am I writing this letter to? Like, who is this person? Um, and like, is it my mom or is this like some metaphorical mother? Because I don't know what's going on. And I just hear this like very like gentle, like not at all condescending, but just like very gentle laughter. And I'm like, great. Now I like you're laughing at me, but is it me? I'm laughing at me. Like I'm totally just like in walking in circles in my mind. And I'm like, okay, well, let me in on the joke. What's the name of this person? And I hear Vienna Steibel, who's the founder of the Theta healing technique. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I sit down, I barf out a letter, which is ostensibly the story I just shared with you guys. And I didn't even have an envelope. Like I literally just like taped it shut, like the way you make a letter out of paper. I taped the letter into an envelope and wrote like the address for the Theta Healing Institute of Knowledge. They were based in Idaho at the time. And I walked down the street um, to the like little blue mailbox on the side of the BQE in Astoria next to the Burger King. I put it in the box. I close the box. There's a pop and I can hear. And it was so profound. I like crouched down behind the mailbox like a wild animal, like that just heard a gunshot or something. It was so loud. And I still remember like I could hear the N train, which is above ground in that part of Queens, like had just pulled into the station stop right near me. I could hear it like creaking, like the brakes creaking. I could hear like the cars going through the Burger King drive through, and I could hear like the traffic noises from the BQE of like afternoon traffic. And it was like that day, probably like 75% of my hearing came back. And over the next 2 or 3 days, the rest of my hearing came back. And I was not raised with a vocabulary to understand what had happened. So I was like, my brain was like, well, I need to understand. Like, I don't understand. How did that happen? So the language that I understood was, well, you go to school to find out. So I'm like, I got to find a course to take so I can understand how this happened. And there was a theta healing course like happening like the next weekend. So I signed up to take it. And that's pretty much, I attribute a lot of like my personal, just like healing and growth. But also like the like recovery of myself and understanding like who I actually am and who I'm definitely not, and the difference between those people, those parts of self, to this like loss of hearing where I couldn't hear, and I just was like I need to understand. Um and I can't like you can't like make this stuff up, like I couldn't, because like I'm a Leo and I'm stubborn, and I would never have written a letter to my mom and like I that was never going to be an idea that I had, so I ended up taking lots and lots of courses and getting my master's and my certificate of science to teach and certify people in theta healing, which um, and it just kind of opened up possibility for different ways for me to communicate with my body, with myself, with my family, with my friends, and to step into an acknowledgement that being a healer was always something that I was. Um, and it just wasn't something that anybody around me understood how to see it or understand it, or even give it language. So um, so yeah, so that's the story. That's the one of the stories.
So good. I love it so much. I'm on my edge of my seat every time. Like it's the first time because it's so much fun to hear the story. And you have more and more of them. Like your journey
Yeah.
through this has just been so many beautiful, um, you couldn't make this up moments
Yeah.
that, okay, so for everybody listening, Amy is an incredible healer. And if this is a modality you would like to learn, which I highly recommend, this is the person I would direct you to learn it from. Just
Thanks.
speaking from my experience. Um, Amy, I want to ask before we sign off, what
Yeah.
is something that you haven't shared yet? Something that's new in your field or that you are um, learning about or playing with or going through that you haven't really put out to the world yet?
Um, wow. It's so rare that I am at a loss for words because I'm such a chatty person, but I need a moment to think.
Take
So
your time.
thank you. So I think one of the big things for me over the past 3 years, I've been going through a lot of transition. A lot of my clients and students know, um, just sort of more of the details of that. But um, I've been in this sort of like transitional space since my divorce, and selling my farm and like retreat space. And one of the ways that I've kind of calibrated and worked through and have been I guess, stumbling into finally. Like I've been waiting for this moment. Just didn't anticipate it being so dramatic to get here. Um, but is that the journey, the physical and emotional and spiritual healing that I've had to experience in the past 3 years has been an absolute like hard factory reset of my identity. And as I'm similar to you, like encountering myself and understanding who I am in this new iteration and format of that's a little bit more dynamic. Um, the parts of me that I'm embracing more and practicing more have a lot more to do um, with parts of me that I don't talk much about, which is uh, my background in creative writing. Um, and so I've been doing a lot more creative writing, a lot more performance poetry, and am in the sort of throes of working on editing a manuscript that I'm hopeful it'll be like moving towards publication soon, but maybe just by sharing it, it'll happen faster. It's on reflections that I've had every time I go to the dump. I have these profound downloads whenever I take my trash out these days. So it's the book is called Dump Reflections, essays on breaking up, breaking down, and recycling yourself. And it's like little vignettes about like what we do with our trash, both literal and figurative. So hoping to get that into some readable format in the next few months. It's probably going to be published online somewhere just so that people can have access to it. So that's a big thing that is sort of in the pipeline. And then also getting myself situated for offering a class on and around direct communication. That's like a big thing that's been in the works that um, I don't have a start date. So, if this is something that speaks to you, I feel like communication is at the root of all of our issues. But, uh, and direct communication, not just with ourselves, with each other, but also with source, with creator, with all that is. If that's of interest, please feel free to reach out, and I'll be sharing more info on that in my, various media, social and email and website and all that stuff. So yeah, that's what's going on for me.
Oh my gosh, that's so perfect. And I can just feel everyone listening chomping at the bit as they're hearing this conversation and how juicy and profound it is that like that book needs to be in everyone's hands or screens. So
Yeah,
if I will have in the show notes, I'll make sure we have all of your stuff. And if people get
great.
your email list, then will they know when it comes out? And
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love you so much. Thank you
Love
for
you
doing
too.
this today. This couldn't have been
Thank
more
you.
perfect. Perfect timing.
Thanks, Cara.
All right, everybody, we're going to make sure you go to the show notes and go see what Amy's doing. We'll make sure we put everything there. I love you all so much.
Thank you so much, my beautiful friends, for playing with us on this episode. Please make sure you sign up for the next free workshop. This one is all about happiness. Can we increase our happiness by 15% across the board? And what would happen if we did? In this workshop, Happier in 3 Simple Steps, we're going to start with a yummy meditation. We're going to close with a beautiful, powerful healing to help see if we can get rid of some of the beliefs and blocks that stand in the way of us letting in more happiness. And in the middle there, I've got some really, really special inner personal work planned for you. So I really hope to see you at this workshop. It's totally free. Share it with your friends, and let's all see if we can bring a little bit more peace
ease, contentment, and happiness into our lives. And it doesn't really matter if you're starting from a place of my life feels like a total disastrous goo shitstorm, or starting from a place of like, yeah, things are pretty awesome right now. Maybe you just want to be able to appreciate and enjoy and receive it a little more, or let it be a little easier. So wherever you're at, imagine that 15% more. You can sign up on the website, or there's a link in the show notes. I love you.